Thank you for joining on Tuesday afternoon. Thank you, panelists. Before we start, let us give a few minutes for everyone to join. We'll start in 2 minutes. People are signing in. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you, my audience. Okay. I hope people have joined. Once again, thank you everyone for joining. As promised, Joy of Performing has brought you again a very exciting webinar with very exciting panelists in front of you. And as today's session states, uh, building a culture of accountability and collaboration. I cannot help myself, but as usual, let me start our webinar with two great quotes related to it. Uh, First one is by Stephen Covey, who is a famous writer of Seven Habits of a Highly Effective People. His famous quotes on accountability is accountability breeds responsibility. And he highlights the proactive nature of accountability. And we take responsibility of our actions and become more capable of responding to challenges and opportunities. Another famous quote is from Winston Churchill. The price of greatness is responsibility. He linked the responsibility in achieving excellence. So with that, with those two quotes, let me welcome once again to you all and introduce my today's panelist, Runa Suman and Govind Negi. They are very experienced leaders very experienced leaders in the field of HR. Okay, where Runa is a strategic and innovative HR leader for last over 2 decades, and Govind Negi is again working in the capacity of global head of talent management and also the founder and CEO of HR Success Talk, a leading HR community with over 150,000 members across 11 countries. So thank you once again, Runa and Govind, to taking out time and joining
My
us.
pleasure.
I'll ask now Runa to briefly introduce her, followed by Govind.
Thank you so much, Ravi. Thanks for inviting me in this session. I'm really honored. While you have given a good introduction about me, I have worked in organizations like Schneider Electric, Airtel, and my last assignment was as an HR head in Honeywell. Now I'm currently working as an HR consultant and a freelancer. I mostly have 2 decades, around 22 years of work experience, and my HR consultancy as of now works around, HR contributions of executive coaching and bringing a positive organization. Of course, with the new technologies of AI, ML coming in, so all those culminating together to make sure that the organization brings its best during this age.
Right. Thank you. And I believe that you will be able to shed a lot of light on the accountability, because accountability is is such an area that is highly sometimes mistaken by young startups or maybe by young or mature leaders also as well. Thank you for joining us today.
I'll try my best, of course.
Thank you, Runa. Govind, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, thank you, Ravi. I think you've already done a pretty good job of that. But very briefly, I'm the global head of talent for a company called 3 Pillar Global. It's an IT software development company. At the same time, I built a community 12 years back called HR Success Talk that has now presence in 11 countries with 150,000 members across the world. Also the trustee and founder of an NGO called Amrita Devi Foundation that works for women empowerment and climate change. We are focused in Uttarakhand, but we are also working in Delhi NCR. The last thing is that I'm the business strategic partner investor in a couple of HR startups right now and supporting them to grow in their startup and business. So happy to be here talking about accountability and collaboration. And I think these are two very key important aspects to build any organization, whether it is a startup or established one. So happy to be here, happy to have this conversation.
Thank you, Govind. I think so. The audience, by your introduction, they must have understood by now that they are going to hear some very great things about the accountability and collaboration. So thank you for finding out time and joining us. Okay, before I delve into the questions, okay, just some house rules that for the audience and for our panelists also. Please post your questions, audience, in the Q&A section. Our panelists will pick up those questions. I'll pick up those questions towards the end, or if those questions are relevant to our current ongoing question, we will happy to include them in our answers right now. Okay. As we have seen from my two quotes, that the accountability is really very important, and often the accountability is misunderstood, and also now with the new age and when the Gen Z is at work and AI also, now there's a lot of change going on. So I remember there was a point, there was a time when the ERPs were coming up in the market, Govind and Runa. Okay, I'm talking about maybe 20 years, 15 years back, and they were hitting the market. That point of time, the collaboration between the departments was a major highlight. Okay, but now again, since that time has gone by, ERP is settled, okay, that dust has settled, practices are there. Now, how to bring that people aspect of that collaboration, that still is a hurdle today. Okay, so my question is basically, please briefly define accountability and collaboration from your perspective to set the tone of the webinar so that now people can understand from your thoughts, okay, what accountability and collaboration means. So Govind, I'll first come to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ravi. I think both the things are very important from an individual perspective and also from an organization perspective. I think I was mentioning about the community that I form, and I always give example of that. It's a great example of accountability and collaboration. Our community has 1.5 lakh members, but Ravi, we have 150 volunteers ranging from a fresher to the CHRO who are working in different capacity and serving this community on a voluntary basis. And many times people ask me, like, how do you build this community? It's very hard to even run an organization where 100 people are paid. Now volunteers are coming. And I think other than the passion, I think the accountability and collaboration is something that has built this community to the stage that it is today. It's been 12 years that this community is working and still growing. We drive it like an organization, although it's a community. So for me, accountability is a very core of anything that a particular individual does, whether it is a paid job or unpaid job. It's a very core, and to me, it's a very individual thing. Although you can argue that accountability also lies with the group, but I would say that if you just go deep into it, of course, it's a very individual thing. So a person is accountable, so a person is accountable. About the collaboration, I think it's the next layer on the accountability, the way I see that. And it's a more like a team stuff. um, is more complex than accountability, because in accountability you have one individual that is either accountable or not. Collaboration, you have multiple people who
Yeah.
are working on that. But I would say both of them are very, very key. There are many other aspects to it, but if you say, hey, would you say that these two are more important? One, I would say definitely these are very core to any organization and community. So that's my way of looking at it, about accountability and collaboration.
Thank you, Govind. Runa, please.
Yeah. So, Govind did say that accountability, there's a layer above accountability, which is collaboration. Let's go one step back and say, start with responsibility. So, responsibility is an obligation, an
Mm.
act that has to be done. So, everyone gets a job description and they get a responsibility. So if I give a small example, like, we are having the webinar. So Ravi, what was your responsibility? Your responsibility was to have this webinar done seamlessly, bring the
Right.
So let's take top three, bring the panelists in place, and of course have maximum participation. The
Right.
top three, right? Now, God forbid it doesn't happen, but your computer happens to crash.
Right.
So you go with a standby with your phone to make sure
Yeah.
that it's still seamless.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
where accountability comes in. You bring in
Beautiful.
accountability.
Right.
The third part is, you still want, because you do n number of webinars now often, you don't want your computer to be crashed and your company to be in stake. So what you
Right.
go is you bring your IT partner as a standby and make sure that your IT partner works on your computer to make sure that this goes on in a seamless way in the future also. That's where collaboration comes in,
Right.
which means that you are not only working with your team as an individual, you take up accountability, you answer to those actions, and one step ahead, you bring a collective goal as a shared purpose to make sure that all the intra departments are working together for the impact of the entire organization. One more layer that I would like to bring is ownership, but this is a personal choice. And ownership comes by leading and taking care of the entire, taking lead of the entire, assignment. So
Right.
that's how I would, define accountability and responsibility and collaboration as an example.
Thank you. I think so. We cannot define it more in much better words than you two have done. Now, just summing it up, okay, we have seen that now from individual to multiple people, right? Now we are also saw that how responsibility and ownership gets into the picture, right? So it's not just the accountability or the collaboration. We also needs to think about the individuals also. We need to also think about how the different partners can play a role, whether they are different individuals. We need to also think about the responsibility. Wonderful, wonderful, and the ownership also, right? And we must understand whose ownership is, and ownership can be of an individual or can be of a team also together. Wonderful. Thank you. I hope so. Audience have now have gotten the gist of the experience that our panelists, wonderful panelists, are bringing in. Okay, and in case if you want to connect to our panelists, okay, we will post you in the chat section. Uh, you can fill a form and we can help you organize a meeting with our panelists. So feel free, right? Now, definition, now we have defined it, okay? Now, let us also understand the challenges, okay? Because now again, there are a whole lot of different challenges we face in our lifetime, right? So, Runa, I'll come to you first. Okay, please briefly describe some key challenges or some very intriguing challenges you have faced while setting up the accountability and the collaboration.
So, let's go with an example again. You
Okay,
know,
from your experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a normal experience. If you don't cascade your goals
Mhm.
properly, if you don't bring people together and have a shared responsibility of the goals, it creates silos. So
Right.
if you have to create a product and the product is going haywire, whereas the marketing department is going ahead and doing some business development or some marketing
Mhm.
around in a different market, it doesn't work. It
Mhm.
has to be aligned. So, working in silos does happen if there is a lack of accountability and collaboration because everyone is trying to, make themselves bigger in the organization, and that creates a lot of disruption. So, communication is one way area where, it helps to bring in a lot of, intermingling of data, intermingling of, connectivity and collaboration does bring in here. Now, working in silos is very difficult, but uh, overcoming that is too easy to take care. The only thing here is someone has to step up to bring all teams together and create that trust with a shared purpose in place. And of course, the whys of why the goals are coming in is very
Right.
important
Very
for every
important.
individual to understand. That's where the individual is able to tie and link and marry their thoughts with the organizational purpose.
Right. Right. Thank you. Thank you, Runa. Govind, any specific challenge you want to highlight, okay, from your experience?
Yeah, sure. I think everybody wants their team members to be accountable. Everybody wants their team to be collaborative. But I would say that this is not that easy in my view. And there are multiple factors because it is not in your head. But taking steps in that direction is absolutely something that an organization leader can do. From an accountability perspective, I think the biggest challenge is when things are not very clear to people. And I always tell my team that if there are two people responsible or accountable for one thing, then nobody is accountable for that actually. So making sure that you have only one person, the rules are very clear.
Right.
So you make sure it from the beginning, but even then, there are certain things that will overlap between each other. And I think that's where the collaboration comes in picture. So the first step is to make sure that you have as much as possible you should define the rules very clearly to your team members. Once that is done, I think then is the job is not done. So you have to have a continuous feedback mechanism in place to have conversations with them. And then
Right.
as a leader, you should be also supporting them in that process. And I would say, Ravi, that I got the privilege. I would say I'm privileged enough to see the demonstration of what job can do. And I have seen the way it has cascaded the whole accountability down to the team member. I think that's where the clarity piece of it is being taken care by the platform. Moreover, I think there is a mechanism to have weekly, bi-weekly conversations and providing support and capturing those. I think leveraging those platform, even if you don't want to just depend upon the verbal conversation and you want to use a platform, I think the job does a very pretty good job out there. And I'll just pick up on what Runa said on the collaboration piece of it. I think it's more like cultural stuff. It's a bigger thing. Sometimes people don't feel that. Sometimes people feel that if I'm doing my job, the other person is not, and if team is failing, it's not my problem. Which is absolutely wrong. I think she gave a good example of marketing doing something else, and sales is trying to do something else, which is a great point to make sure that not that multiple functions of the organization can work in different directions, trying to achieve same thing, it won't happen. And again, somebody has to take that responsibility to make sure the whole organization is coming together. So I think these are some of the challenges that I see that happens. Although it's very easy said than done, because these things take a lot of time to kind of inculcate in the culture of the organization. That would be my 2 cents to your question.
Right. Okay. Just let us make it more interesting. Okay. I just want to expand this question. Now, since you both have over 2 decades of experience, okay. Now, would you like to share any pointers, okay, to our young startup leaders that how they can prevent failures, right, while setting up the accountability or the collaboration within their organization? What is that one thing from Govind? What is that one thing from Runa that you would like to advise them? Right, do this, right? Maybe you will not fail in setting up the accountability. So, Govind, first, would you like to say one thing?
It's very hard, actually, Ravi. because I remember that in my current organization, when I joined the company, this was the first job that was given to me to set that thing right. And it took me good amount of time to make sure that we go. So this is basically a combination of multiple things. But if you ask me one thing at the top of everything, I would say the leader, you spoke about startup, the leader of startup organization should walk the talk. It's not that you are asking for an accountability and collaboration from your team member. You yourself is not collaborative. You take decisions and then think that people will just follow the decision. You don't bother to just listen to their thoughts, what they are thinking. You don't even bother to take buy-in. Then you are not walking the talk, because people does follow they observe their leaders and they follow it. And I'll share your story. One day somebody was asking me, what will happen, what will go wrong, Govind, if I'm not dressed up well? And he was a leadership. And what if I am speaking, not speaking the in a proper way? And I said that if so, even people watch your mood, right? Whether in a good mood or bad mood, you might not be observing that the people are observing you. So you have to walk the talk. If you want your people to behave in a collaborative way, you have to be collaborative first. If your team member is, if you expect your team member to be accountable, then you have to be accountable first. If you set up a meeting, you come 5 minutes late, and then you expect your team member to join 1 minute before, won't happen. So I think so walk the talk for the startup leaders. If that accountability and collaboration is in top of their list, they make sure that it is top of their in the list of their behavior as well while they are interacting with the team.
Beautiful, beautiful, very beautiful, and very apt. Okay. Runa, one thing that you would like to advise.
Govind said it all. While walking the talk and being a pace setter is important. And because, employees look up to their CEOs. Gone those days when they had, those the mentors, or, if you say, who's your mentor, you would say Mother Teresa and so on. No, today's generation looks at their CEO and says, okay, this is how I want to be, and this is how I would like to do in future. So it's important that the CEO walks the talk, but apart from that, the CEO also goes one step ahead and sets clear expectations to the teams. So while he or she is accountable, there are smart goals which is specific, measurable, and realistic and time bound. So all these goals are not only smart, but at the same time the team within the organization is setting clear expectations that what is it that I can do to make sure that my individual goals are getting right with the organizational overall outcome. We can talk more about it. And best and not the least is, celebrating successes and milestones over and over again. That brings in a lot of camaraderie within the organization as a whole. And that brings in a lot of, you can say, collaboration as well as accountability, because you are being recognized for your behaviors.
Right. Very, very beautiful. The two important pointers. Yeah, please.
Ravi, if you're this when Runa was speaking, it reminded me of a story that just happened last week, and I'll try not to name certain things here. So last week I was on a trip to a particular institution, and I got an opportunity because during this event the CEO is also supposed to come and meet, and I got an opportunity to interact with the CEO. And while interacting, and I was asking, I don't know how this conversation went to the challenges he faces as a CEO. And his simple thing was that, Govind, how do I make sure that I don't have to follow up with my team member? And he literally said that when I look at my to-do list, 90% of my to-do list is follow up with that, follow up with this. and, and interestingly, Ravi, 2 weeks before I was in your event where I could got a complete sense of how your platform can solve a CEO problem. And I exactly gave him 3 examples that you showcase in your demonstration about increasing the revenue, reducing the cost, and also branding of the organization. And he was so blown away with the whole idea. But cut story short, what I'm trying to say here is that this is a big problem for CEOs of the organization today. That they first, they are struggling with the right kind of people who are accountable. They are struggling with the team member that is collaborative.
Yeah.
So, and that is a very seasoned CEO, by the way, that I
Okay.
was talking to. So sometimes we are so into the day-to-day life that we don't get the time to, like it's a saying, right? Working in the business and working on the business, right? We don't get the time to work on the business.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I think that would be my advice to those startup one more time is that, if you know the problem, so first understanding the problem is very important. Then he was very clear that what is his problem. Like his problem was 90% of his tasks are follow-ups, which means that he doesn't have accountable team members, right? He doesn't have a team that is collaborative. Otherwise, there's no point that he should have 90% of things
Yes.
in his list as follow-up. So yeah, it's actually a journey that a CEO need to go through. So yeah, just wanted to share that story that come
Sure,
up.
sure. But thank you, Govind. I think so. You've given me an interesting topic for my another webinar. Okay, we can host a complete different webinar on for CEOs particularly, and we can invite CEOs and we can discuss various aspects. Okay, where they can be very honest to their problems, and we can talk about the solutions also. Right? Thank you. But very interestingly, see, this happens when we get to talk freely to the leaders like you guys, right? So how beautifully you have set 3 pointers, walk the path. Runa, Runa suggested that celebrations are must. The leaders must understand that they have to praise and they have to celebrate small wins of their team so that they get more inspired. And then again, as Govind said with an example, that we must be very clear with the problem. Solution
Mm.
इसका ढूंढ रहे हैं. What is that we are searching for? That is very important. Okay. Okay. So thank you, and audience, please. I hope so that you are enjoying this, and please drop in your questions in the Q&A session. I'll love to present it to our panelists. Okay. Now, we have understood the challenges also. We talked about a little, and we somewhere touched upon the accountability and collaboration, how they complement each other. Okay. But still, if you very briefly want to cover any extra pointers, additional pointers, that how they complement each other or how they should complement each other. Okay, so Govind, I'll come to you first.
No, I think you have already said that we have covered that part, and it's true. I think both of them, both
Yes.
accountability and collaboration complement each other very well. For me, I know there could be a lot of more details to what I'm going to say, but if you ask me a very brief way, I see accountability as an individual thing, that an individual should be accountable, and collaboration is a team thing. But if one is not accountable, it is very hard for me to imagine that person will be collaborative. Hard for me to imagine. There could be exceptions, but Runa, maybe you have different thoughts, so feel free to add.
Yeah, I mean, all said and done, accountability, and collaboration goes hand in hand. Accountability is an enabler towards collaboration because it reduces friction amongst teams. As I said, if you have your IT partner with you always when you're doing your webinars, things become much faster because you've got a shared responsibility and you've got a shared, a vision to make it seamless. So that alignment helps in a long lasting, successful output that brings in with, both joining hands with each other. And both in the sense here is accountability and collaboration.
Right, right. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so now this is very interesting. Uh, as again, I'll go back to Govind's example of the seasoned CEO. Okay, now since we are so much in the business, we are not able to look the problems and find the solutions. Okay, so sometimes it's not just for the startup problems; it's also the problems of the very seasoned one. But now, if we have identified that yes, my team's problem is accountability, and maybe they are not able to collaborate so well. So what are some practical first steps for organization to again restart that collaboration, accountability, or to set up that low accountability, low collaboration, so that they can then start practicing it, they do not feel so much overwhelmed. Because sometimes when you tend to, I remember one of the CHROs, her problem was, Ravi, how can I make these Gen Zs accountable? I'm not able to work with them. They are so different. Their problems are so much. Okay, they are not well connected to the business. How can I end up whole time by in my trainings. How do I make them work? Because so there are so many things. So how we can start with some accountability steps and the collaboration steps. Runa, would you
Yeah.
like to answer that?
So we started with the diagnostic root cause. We understood, that accountability is the problem, right?
Mhm.
So we are identifying gaps here. Maybe, the gap can be accountability, the gap can be teamwork, the gap can be anything else.
Mhm.
Now, in the meantime, while we are assessing the gaps and doing a diagnostic root cause analysis, it's
Mhm.
good to also navigate within the organization to understand who our early adapters are or who are innovators. In the
Mhm.
process of change management, you'll find 10% of these people are available in the organizations,
Mhm.
because these early adapters and innovators help to bring a lot of change within the organization. Of course, it's a change management process because you
Mhm.
are moving from low to high collaboration and accountability. So in that case, these change leaders, whom we would say the early adapters and the innovators of the organization, while we have navigated and understood who they are, we
Mhm.
ask their voluntary participation to create a workshop. Now, what is this
Mhm.
workshop around? This workshop can be, aligning of, leadership with
Mhm.
the organizational goals, getting the goals done with the leadership team.
Right.
Now, if this is done, the next step is set clear expectations
Mhm.
for the organization with the leadership team. The leadership team goes back with their functional leaders, for example. So these functional leaders then again create a similar fashion, a workshop around what are their, functional goals.
Mhm.
Because the company goals will have a link, but not the
Mhm.
same.
Right.
And these functional goals will be SMART goals.
Right.
Now, having said this, the goals are done at a functional level.
Mhm.
We understand that why the goals are tagged to the organizational goals and what is the purpose behind an individual goal and a functional and the
Mhm.
organizational goal. Once
Mhm.
that is created, it is cascaded down the line. But while
Okay.
it is cascaded down the line, it is important that you track progress and have transparent goals even for an individual and
Mhm.
achieve those goals. So there
Mhm.
is this framework called as OKR,
Mhm.
objective key results.
Right.
So objective, what is the objective? What is the key result? And how are we going ahead and achieving is the progress that we can track. In the
Right.
meantime, like we said, it's important that we also upskill a task force who is doing.
Yes.
Constant upskilling is so very important in today's day. In the yesteryears, there was one degree and one job and one retirement. But
Wow.
in date, today's
Yeah.
date, it is one degree, one PG, I mean, an MBA with a, and then upskilling. Oh, I've done an upskilling in, project
Yeah.
management. I've done an upskilling in AI
Yeah.
ML today, and so on. So all these multiple upskilling helps in your day-to-day achievements to go to the
Mhm.
next level. So
Right.
it is our responsibility in the organization also to encourage employees to upskill.
Mhm.
And while they are upskilling, constant dashboards are also available in the platforms where you're able to see where we are, what
Mhm.
is the expected result, and how we are doing, and what is the gap between them. And of
Right.
course, last but not the least, celebrating success and milestones is very important
Very
to,
important.
create that fun effect and that camaraderie within the organization.
Very
So
good.
I've given steps, but if you want to know more, I can, again articulate the steps with one, two, three, four.
Sure, sure. And audience, please, I'll remind you, these are very important pointers which our panelists are giving out. And with respect to time, they cannot expand it, right? They are very briefly describing it. But if you want to connect to them, you can reach out to us. You can fill out the form that is already shared by my team in the chat box. Okay. Okay, so Govind, coming back to you, right? Do you want to add anything to it?
No, I think Runa has explained it pretty well. I don't want to repeat what she already said. What I would say is that for anything that where you want to solve a problem, the first thing that you realize there is a problem.
Mhm.
I have seen many organizations who doesn't even understand that they have a problem to solve. And culture being one of them. And because accountability and collaboration somewhere is also connected with the culture of the organization. And many a times you'll be surprised to know, Ravi, the leaders of the organizations are the bigger problem of the culture. They might say, hey, I don't like the culture. I want to change the culture. They are the problem. They need to change themselves rather than changing anybody
Yeah.
before. But they don't want to hear that, by the way. If you're a
Yes,
consultant,
yes.
don't give that advice. So one is that there has to be an understanding, or there has to be an acceptance there is a problem, accountability problem and collaboration problem. And then I think all the step Runa explained is pretty much very, very clear. Then you start with the set goals, and then you go to till the time that you celebrate the success. So I think pretty much there. The one thing I want to say is on the Gen Zs that you just spoke about. Like I'm gonna literally hear this in every conversation. I think they are also so every generation is different. By the way, my father used to say that we are different. He was equally pissed off from my generation. Like I might be with others, right? I think the key is that we need to understand what they need from what they want to do. And Runa touched upon this on having one PG and then multiple upskilling. And I think it's a great way to explain that. I'll tell you one conversation that I was having with one of the HR leaders where we are talking about employee engagement. And this particular story matches to what you were just asking as well, is that where we said, why do we need to invest so much of money on our new generation employees when they just leave? They don't even care. And we are a remote first organization. We don't even meet people very often, right? My team members might be working and I might have been meeting them on the camera, but might be like, I don't know, not ever met them or just met them once. And when they just resign, they resign, right? They just say, hey, you know what, I'm resigning. I got another opportunity. Tata, bye-bye. Everything is good. Then the question is, like we were discussing about, organization does so much on employee engagement. Do we really need to bother about employee engagement, right? In the sense that, do we really need to give them medical insurance? Do we really need to give them term life? Do we need to really give them this or that or whatever zing zang that we do? And end of the day, they just bother about their in-hand salaries and they just leave if they don't like the environment, they don't like the pay, they get a better opportunity, whatever it could be. So maybe the thing is that we should just forget about all that and we just focus on giving them higher pay, right? That's what they want. So now we didn't do that, but what we were discussing is that we need to understand what they want and try to give them that. And same lies for accountability as well, Ravi, that I think I will not say that they are right and wrong, but in a way, this generation is very different. Their span of attention is very low. Their real generation, they just, in fact, we are becoming like that too. But they just want things very quick. They want appreciation very quick. They want everything very quick. No problem in that. So if that is the case from accountability perspective, I think we need to work on more like short-term goals as opposed to long-term goals with them. So the long-term goals has to be with the people who believe in long-term goals, or generation that believes in long-term goals. And then we should break it in a way that is a short term. And they like, okay, within 1 month, I just achieved it, right? And then they have this chemical reaction in their body that they feel very good about it and appreciate it. As opposed to just saying that you will get something after 3 years, right? They are not a ESOPs people. They are like, give me 2 times increment in a year. So I think it's more than them. It's also on us that how do we understand this generation and tweak our strategies on that. And last thing I would say on the OKR, because Runa mentioned about that, and I heard so much about OKRs. I have heard all people who are like OKR, and people who just said the OKR, the bad thing that ever you can do with your organization. OKR is a great concept. It's very, very, it can give you result when you implement it properly. And the problem with that, the whole leadership has to align top to bottom to implement it right. And sometimes I feel that particular focus is missing from the organization. But yes, and nevertheless, all the steps, if you just follow, if you listen to what Runa said from the beginning, if you follow that, I think you will achieve your outcome. The point is that whether you have the commitment to follow it in the way that she's described. So that will be my 2 cents on the.
Thank you. Thank you, Govind. So I think so. It's a framework, it's a structure that you have to follow. And despite of hammering on the accountability, if what I can hear from Runa and Govind is, if we give them a good structure, maybe if OKRs are best suited, then OKRs. If there's any other framework, smart goals or anything else, right? But there has to be a framework, and then you must be very clear about your ownership. And very interesting. I cannot stop. It just came into my mind, right? Since we are talking about OKRs, and we have a client, right, who are into sustainable products. They just started very recently, 2 years back, and the CEO, the founder, he was all, and they are just a small team, okay, of 20 people, and he was facing always a problem that how to lead my team, how to, because they were mature people on one side, and they were Gen Zs on one side. So he said that how to bring them together and how to motivate them so that they can be accountable. And they adopted OKRs pretty well. And once they adopted it, one of their team member who was in the marketing and the design, there were two different persons. Okay, they came up with their plans to the CEO, connecting their plans to the company plans, and he was astonished. He said, Ravi, it never happened in 2 years. I always had to go to them. This is the first time they have come to me in advance. And I was thinking they will take maybe 45 days to accomplish this, but they accomplished it in what, 1 week. And he asked them that what is the reason that now you are doing this? Okay. He said, nothing. Now we have the clarity. We own this. We'll do it. And he was very surprised that, oh my God, it's such a simple thing which was missing, right? So thank you, Runa, thank you, Govind, to bring out OKRs, right? I always find it very, 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 very good, very self motivated when I talk about it. Okay, thank you. Let me, before we have got some questions, but before we come to the questions, I cannot help with this question, right? I need to ask micromanagement, okay, about, and this is one of the very taboo subject which mature leaders, okay, do not wish to talk about. And as rightly Govind said a few minutes back, that the leaders hate to question, right? They hate it, right? And they enjoy micromanagement as maybe as a culture or maybe as the business practice that is being into. So how we can establish accountability without creating a culture of micromanagement? So Govind, first I'll come to you.
Yeah, I think it's an apt question for me, Ravi, because I'm not a micromanagement leader at all. I hate
I
micromanagement
know.
personally, right? And if you ask me what is my superpower, I would say my superpower is to build high-performing team, and I think that's
Right.
precisely I've been able to build,
Yes.
do my job, build HRST as a community, do Amrita Devi Foundation, a couple of things, because you will not see me everywhere. Where I know where I'm needed and how that has to be done. So I hate micromanagement, but I don't hesitate to do micromanagement where I think the micromanagement is needed, right?
Yeah.
I will be foolish saying that somebody is not doing the job, and I will be foolish to just say, hey, well, someday the things will be fine. Then my accountability, hits and head say, you know what, I am accountable for that. If this person is not doing, I need to have a conversation and just maybe set a everyday meeting with the person to make sure that things are moving fast. And if that is not happening, then I think this person and myself working style doesn't match. Maybe this person needs micromanagement and I'm not a micromanagement guy. So this person might be good in some other organization, because I believe everybody is good somewhere, maybe not working with me. So I think micromanagement is good and bad both. It's depend upon your own leadership style. You can't achieve a lot with micromanagement. That much I can say. You can't scale without doing things on the micromanagement. That is my personal opinion. Um, our organization, the organization I work with, you'll be surprised to know that we work only on accountability. So when you are not doing micromanagement, that you have an accountability in your culture, that is why you are not able to do a micromanagement, because the other people are accountable, right? They know
Right.
what their accountability is, and that's why you don't have to do a micromanagement with them. So um, many a times people not now, but it's, I think, before COVID, we were the organization, we were not taking attendance from people. We don't even use now it is a little normal. But that point in time, it was very surprising for people that we don't have attendance mechanism. We never used to ask people, where are you? What we used to ask is, have you delivered what you're supposed to deliver? And there are set of calendars that you have with your client meeting or your peer meeting, then you're supposed to be part of it. As long as you're delivering, it is fine. And I think that comes from the top down, the top down culture. So
Right.
if I am watching Netflix, but still I'm able to do what I expected out of me, it's okay. But if I am just spending all 8 hours and not doing what I'm expected to, is not acceptable and not accepted from an organization culture perspective. So I think so that way I believe that micromanagement depends upon what kind of leader you are. I'm not that leader for sure, and I think that if you're a micromanagement leader, you will not be able to scale. The biggest problem with the micromanagement is, which happens with me as well, is that when something is going wrong, then you should be open to take it easy, in the sense that uh, it's a habit, right? Like Ravi, you saw some of your team member is doing something wrong, and they just created a problem, or they did something wrong. I think the important thing is to just list to just understand what it is and just guide that particular person. Same time, I'm also not in favor that you just for a long life you are into a coaching of a team member who's not able to understand. My philosophy is very simple, that if the person is not performing, I think it's actually respectful to tell the person that you are not performing well and you find something else for yourself. I don't think this is disrespectful. The disrespectful is that I'm not telling him what is going on, and in my head, the perception of that person is the poorest. This is disrespectful to that
This
particular
is
person.
disrespect.
Yeah. So I think there are a lot of things the leader need to change in itself. It's very hard not to go into micromanagement, because I have seen many, including myself, that we have this habit of going into micromanagement. You need a lot of push to just
Stay
stop
away
yourself
from
from
it.
micromanagement.
Yeah, right, right. Thank you. So leaders, be mindful while you micromanage, okay? And only micromanage where you are required to. Okay, do not make it a habit. Definitely, yes, that's true that you cannot scale with micromanagement. Okay, okay. Thank you, Govind. Okay, Runa, on on the same
Micro.
question,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. So imagine a orchestra team and you are Zubair Mehta. And everyone is playing their own, one is playing the violin, the other one piano, and so on. And suddenly, the violin person does not work as per the tune. The melodious music turns out to be I mean, it's a music that's not good to your ears.
Yeah, right.
So in that case, Zubair Mehta will, of course, keep on, putting a stick in front of the violin so that,
Yes,
the
yeah,
violin comes to its
right,
track.
right.
But doing that excessively will also hamper the pianist, the,
Yes,
trumpet person or the drummer and so on. So micromanagement does affect with one person if it is done, it affects the entire team and the entire organization goes for a toss because that melodious music doesn't come in.
right. Wonderful example. Indeed, a
Yeah.
wonderful example.
So that's the synchronization of, collaboration and accountability comes in.
Right,
And so, as Zubair Mehta, you need to avoid excessive check-ins or unnecessary oversights.
right.
It's important that, we also bring in some, imagine in the Zubair Mehta's team, in the orchestra team, if Zubair Mehta started to micromanage that individual and there is another individual who is already ready to take over Zubair Mehta's place, the team
Yeah,
would have still worked around.
right, right.
So I would say, it is good to have managers trained to be coaches
Yes, yes.
because in a technical organization, mostly you will see that, the managers are not trained to be managers of people. They're not
Um,
good people managers. So it's
yes.
good to, bring managers up to speed. And that's where the sprinkle of trust goes entire in the entire organization. So we
Right.
start to sprinkle that trust. So that's one area that I would say that it's important that every manager is trained to be a manager as a coach. It's a very slow process, but
Mm.
believe me, it gives three times the results of any organizational results. I mean, the bottom line of the
Right.
P&L.
Right. Right.
The third factor, I would say, while there is constant feedback given,
Mm-hmm.
we normally say that need to give feedback twice a year or once a year. That's gone those days.
Yeah.
This is the time of disruption. Constant
Right.
feedback is important. And
Right.
I would name it as a feed forward rather than a feedback.
Yes.
Why? Because, you've got the Gen Zs available. They will not, they will listen to you, but they will not respect you if as a manager you say, this is what is expected and this is what you're not doing up to the mark. Rather, if you coach them and say them that, look, this is what is expected, and you and me can work together and have an open dialogue as to how we can reach there, the level of respect comes to a greater
Very
effect.
true. Very true. Very
So
true.
encouraging an open dialogue and giving a feed forward helps to, bring the entire team together and builds in respect. And hence,
Mm.
you're able to, sprinkle that trust in the organization in every department and
Right.
emphasize on outcomes, not on, why you
Results.
didn't come, why did you come late,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
on, and communicate the
Right.
whys behind every objective. It's
Right.
so important because once that is tied and married to the thought process of an individual with
Mm.
the individual goals and the organizational goals. You gave that example, the
Right.
CEO was really happy to see
Yeah.
it. It reduces a lot of time.
Right.
So micromanagement, you know to avoid micromanagement, I think these are the few factors, and Govind said it all before me.
Thank you, and I think so. Panelists have stated that beautifully with a wonderful example and also in detail. So avoid micromanagement, bring in that culture of accountability. Okay, so let me now jump to the question. Dr. Arjun Arora asked a question: what to do if team members are not willing to upskill, lack motivation due to compensation reasons, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll come to you, Runa, for that.
Okay. So, there is a survey, and it's a universal a survey by Gallup. It says that people leave their managers and they don't leave their companies, they just leave their managers. So
Mhm.
while at the front phase they are saying they're leaving for compensation and we will do things because of compensation, it is important to understand the root
Mhm.
cause why
Right,
that
right.
individual is leaving. And that is why organizations, I know the startups will not be able to afford, but still, it is good to do an engagement dipstick
Mhm.
to understand what is the engagement level of every employee. Most of them will say that money comes later. They will say that I have a very wonderful organization to work with. While I'm able to work, I know that these are the things that are the motivators. So it is important as an organization to understand what my motivators are. As a manager, what is the motivation? I need to ask myself. So I would say, Dr. Archana, to also ask yourself, what is your motivator to stay with the organization? If you get those answers, you will surely put those answers to your team and understand why your team is also looking forward to it. And also understand that in today's generation they look for belongingness, they look for purpose. So let's
Yeah,
attach the purpose and bringing belongingness. It's like,
right.
if you find one flower in a garden and you see the entire garden is not there, just there's just one flower. Let's have more flowers to beautify the garden. And in order to understand that one flower, why is it blooming, let's talk to that one flower
Mm.
and see what the
Interesting.
motivators are.
Yeah, very interesting. I hope so, Dr. Ruchin, you got your answer. Okay. And in case you want to connect to Runa or Govind on the said subject, please fill the form. Okay, we'll happy to connect to you. I think so. One few of the questions are really where we've already touched. What's the best way to make accountability a natural part of the culture? Govind, you already touched that beautifully, but still, if you want to say anything on that, right? And the question says that, okay, what's the best way to make accountability a natural part of the culture rather than something that feels enforced? I think so. Feels enforced is the bigger issue over here. Would you like to add anything to?
Yeah, I'll just say that as a leader, you have to have a trust with you have to build a trust
Mm,
among your team member, and not by just saying, but just showcasing it to people. And in our organization, one thing we used to do is we used to celebrate failures, where
mm,
we used to ask people to come and tell their story of failure, and then we used to reward the one that has failed but learned from it and did not repeat. So we don't want people to fail on the
mm.
same thing again and again.
Very
And
interesting.
it was really a very interesting concept,
Mm,
something that we are very skeptical if we try that,
mm,
how that will be perceived by people. But I
mm.
think the message we wanted to give with that is that if you failed, don't put it under the carpet. Just tell
Right.
this to your leader. But at the same time, as a leader, you should not be just blasting on the person, but making sure that that you tell the person what is the right thing to do.
Mm.
But at the same time, if you see that person is making the same mistake again and again, then you understand there is a problem of
Yeah,
understanding what the person understands, right? So
right.
I think it's being vulnerable with your team member. Otherwise,
Mm,
they will always try to hide things, and they will not be accountable in
right.
what they do. So I think if you start doing this yourself,
Mm,
people will start observing it, and they will realize, and then it will not be that it will not look like an enforced thing on them, as opposed to something that comes very naturally. And by the way, Ravi, it's a very huge topic.
yes.
It's connected with culture, so many things. It's
Yeah.
not that easy to answer in just small, but I think I'm just giving you what I felt was the core of what I saw in that particular
Right.
exercise.
And definitely, Govind, I think so. I must admit that I will connect to you, right, on understanding how we can set up that celebration, celebrate failures, because I do understand how to celebrate achievements, but definitely I would like to talk to you. And I think so. My fellow attendees will also love to hear more on setting that, because that is very, very important. Because I think so. One way also is why leaders micromanages. Somewhere they think and they believe that the people down below will not be able to deliver as per their expectations. So that belief system has to be there, and the people down below, right? The reportees have to make them believe that yes, they can. Right. And for that, I think so it's a simple reason. If they fail, we have to be fine with that once. Okay. Okay, once. But we must understand, as you rightly said, that they should not repeat it. Okay. So, but for before that, it comes the acceptability. Okay, yeah, I may have done it better way. Okay, or may I have done it totally wrong. I screwed it up. Next time, what best I can do it. But I'll definitely connect to you, Govind. I'll fill the form in the chat. Okay. Thank you. With respect to time, let me take up another question. Okay. Okay, we also touched base on this. Like, how do you keep collaboration and productivity on without turning it into an endless meetings and back and forth? Today, we all are facing this problem of endless meetings. We have the sentiments and feedback from our colleagues, right, from our friends, that we end up having lot of calls when to work. So any quick one-liners from Runa and Govind?
And if you say one line, I've got many liners, but the most important factor to, any meeting is come with an agenda. Without an agenda, if you come in a meeting and, just do a round robin, it doesn't work. So it's
Hmm.
good to have an agenda and only have meetings when you have critical decisions or brainstorming sessions and so
Hmm.
on. So that's how you understand that decision making becomes an important factor for anything to, for any organization to work. So
Right.
come with an agenda. Let's do that agenda right, and and stick to the objectives of what we have. So being objective is very important in any meeting.
Hmm.
Of course, here and there things might crop up, that these are the to-do lists that might come up during the discussion, but that can be parked, and then again, everyone can come with some uh, solutions around it. But the
Right.
agenda with what we've come with the meeting is very important to, stick to.
Sure. Thank you, Runa. Govind.
Yeah, I think I would have said what Runa just said, that I never do meetings where there is no agenda. I do cancels meeting if I see there is
Yeah.
no reason of that. But I would say there are multiple types of meetings. One is the team review. I always do it once in a week. Every my diet reportee. I also set up quarterly skips level meeting. I also have working meetings. That's very important. So if I'm working on a particular thing that I need to close in a particular time, I make sure that I do daily or weekly or whatever I think is appropriate to reach to that objective, and I call it a working. But end of the day, the crux is same what Reena said, right? It can be different kind of meeting, but there is always an objective. But
Always
if I
an
feel there is no
objective.
objective to the meeting, just cancel it. And also, many a times I just ask people to like remove people from the meeting who are actually not needed in the meeting. If they're just listener, or if they just have to give some input in the starting 5 minutes, so they just either give through our communication channel or just come for 5 minutes and close and leave,
Right,
because
right.
then they can spend time on their productive work
Right.
as well.
Interesting. Thank you once again, Runa. Thank you, Govind,
My pleasure.
for accepting our invite. We are towards the end of our time, I think so, but not towards the end of the webinar. Still, there's so much to talk, because accountability and collaboration is such a wide subject, and such a in-depth subject at the same time, right? We may need more webinars, right? I'll ask my team to add more webinars to it, right? We can expand this. But thank you so much for finding out time, and I hope our audiences have liked it, and they would love to connect to Runa and Govind. Okay, we will definitely make your introductions. Thank you once again. Thank you for joining. We will, as committed, we will again bring you a very exciting webinar with exciting panelists. Thank you once again, Runa. Thank you once again,
Thank you.
Govind. Thank you, attendees. Thank you.